we are sitting here with John Benedict of the Music Connection on South Willow Street in Manchester. John, I'd like to talk about your store a little bit. What I would seem to be the last record store in Manchester, if you agree with that.
I would agree with that. As far as a major, large-sized store, I would say yes.
With all of this vinyl that I
Yes.
haven't seen in many places
I
in
have
a long time.
I have an extensive inventory of vinyl, including 78s and 45s and the old trusty LP, 33.
And CDs?
Yeah, I actually have many used CDs. I haven't really gotten into new CDs yet, but at some point it might be happening.
I'd like to talk about your whole store and what you do, but I'd like to maybe do a little history with you. As a record fan myself, I used to come in the old, was it Manchester back in the day?
Manchester.
Which was your previous owner's business, so you can talk about that if you'd like.
I can tell you a little history about that. So, the previous owner, Richard Gessner, he left the teaching profession. He had a very large record collection, and he decided to relocate to Manchester, New Hampshire, live here, and open a store. And that store was Manchester. It opened in 1987. And the reason it was called Manchester was not only was it in the city, but it was on Manchester Street. So it just had a, double meaning.
I always thought it was a play on New York.
Yeah, I thought it was too. So that's what I believed. He moved here to the present location in 1990.
Okay.
And he's was here ever since, quietly existing during the dark times of the music business, which started probably in 1999 and probably stayed around till about 2012.
Right. And so, as a music record store visitor, I was always in that old store, then I came to this store quite frequently.
Yeah.
And he was always very friendly and always hung around the back working on some tapes for somebody or making some cassette for somebody in California or something.
Yep. He was always recording. He loved to compile. He liked to organize. He was really librarian-like. He really enjoyed that. He amassed a huge data collection of customers, but the old school way, on index cards.
Oh, okay.
And alphabetized by their likes, not their names. So I go through and I can look at the cards he set up, and it says Madonna, and then there's like 5 people that are way into Madonna. I keep going, Bob Marley, these people are in the Bob Marley.
People that would want their stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I thought it was interesting he filed it by artist and not by name, but then again, it would really be hard to find someone's name and tie it to the artist. You'd have to remember their last name or their first name or whoever, and so by artist it was really quick.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, salute to Richie, I guess, Richard, for what he did here. And then to cut to today, you was telling me you came along last fall or something when he was...
I came in here in August. I was previously working in Concord part-time at Pitchfork Records, which is the last record store in Concord.
Yes, I would say so.
And a letter arrived in the mail from Richard that he sent to other stores in New Hampshire and northern Massachusetts, saying he was wanting to get out of the business for real. He'd always said from day one that the store was always for sale.
Mm-hmm.
He never publicly put it on the market, but if someone walked in and said, I want to buy your store and this is the amount I'm willing to pay, if it was the amount he wanted, he would sell it.
Yeah.
He would walk away. But this time he sought out a buyer. So I'm just casually working at Pitchfork Records, and I've known that owner, Michael Cohen, since I was a little kid, 7 years old. I've been shopping in this store since he opened in Concord. And we have a long history, a friendship, and he was kind of helping me out with a part-time job. I was in the middle of not knowing what I was going to do next in my life. This letter arrives, and he hands me the letter,
Wow.
and he says, go talk to Richard. sat on the letter for 3 weeks.
Ah.
I wasn't too sure I wanted to go back into the business. I actually have a history that we'll probably get to in a little bit about me and the business. But I finally got the gumption to come down here on Thursday, and I spoke with Richard, and I said, I got the letter, and I've been working in Concord with Michael, and he said I should come down here and talk to you. I said, I have a friend that I'd probably go in business with if it works out, and we want to buy your store probably. So I spoke to my friend Kevin Swope, who I've known, again, since I was about 7 or 8 years old, and came in here on a Sunday, and he said, yeah, let's do it. So we knew Richard wanted to move to Florida. That was his goal, was to sell the store and move to Florida. So we actually accelerated the purchasing of the store to hopefully get Richard to Florida. And we were about 2.5 weeks ahead of schedule. We bought the store on September 14th. And the funny story about that was we were supposed to buy it on September 15th. But Richard said he wasn't going to be in town on that day. And he couldn't change his plans. And I was like, we told you we were buying the store on the 15th. And he said, well, not going to be here. And I said, well, we're going to buy it on the 14th then. And he's like, okay.
Oh, jeez.
So we arranged to meet here on the 14th. And while we were here, there was a gentleman and a woman, and he had a camera, and he took a picture of the three of us on the celebration of buying the store. And I don't know who that person was. I haven't seen him again. No one's walked in and said, I have that picture of the three of you. I'd love to give it to you. So if this video gets out there and he sees this, I'm looking for the picture. Yeah. Because it's a beautiful picture.
Well, I think...
And go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that the irony of all this, I guess, and I did not know until I came to see you, was how ill Richard was, I guess, right?
Yeah, Richard's health was poor, but he always was here post buying the store. We didn't have an agreement that he would remain here, but he kind of took it upon himself to be here because, one, he couldn't really separate himself from the store. He really... It was bittersweet for him. He didn't really want to sell it in some ways, but he really wanted to sell it in many ways. And he loved his customers, and he loved to be here. This was his place. So we had sort of a gentleman's agreement. I didn't say I want you here on these days, but he said, I'll pop in and see how you're doing and introduce you to customers that He actually introduced me to everyone in this plaza.
Oh, nice.
He walked me to each business and said, this is John. He bought the store from me. Welcome him to the building. And they were like, hi, John, and all this stuff. So it was pretty nice that he did that. He was very gentlemanly. So Richard was very old school. He used the post office to notify people about items. He didn't use email. He didn't use any type of social media, which is fine. I mean, he's 83 years old when he sold the store to me. It's just not, there's so many things to learn, and he was more into collecting and keeping the customers that he had. He wasn't looking to get really busy. I mean, 83 years old and you have to be here 6 days a week. That's a lot of work for someone. So the first thing I started with was to get the name out there. And the only way I thought people would find out about this place would be a sign at the entrance to the plaza on South Willow Street. So I bought a A-frame sign, put Music Connection on it, put, we buy vinyl, CDs, movies, phone number, come on in, check it out, kind of sign. And that was the best thing I did because it brought people here that had no idea that he was here. And then the second thing I did was I worked with a company to get the search ability on the internet to find the store. It was good if you typed in Music Connection. You knew exactly what you were looking
Yeah.
for. Sure, it'd pop up. But if you typed in vinyl stores in New Hampshire, or I love records, and it wasn't coming up quickly. It was beyond
So-
like the second page or something.
Vinyl
So-
must be one of the tag words, and
Yeah.
all the others.
So I worked with a company to increase the search capability of the store, because a lot of people use devices to find me. And the one thing that Richard pointed out to me when I was interested in buying the store was, did you see my Yelp reviews? So he knew that he had excellent reviews on Yelp. And that's where I put the other part of my money immediately into Yelp, because I figured they need to see what the store's about.
Right.
So I increased my exposure on Yelp. And the fourth was print advertising. And the Hippo,
I've seen it.
yeah, the Hippo based out of Manchester, reaches a very large cross-section of people. It's amazing in this time of, internet and social media that paper actually does well. And I was recommended by other business people to advertise with them. So that was the fourth way to reach people.
So we've got to the point where you've taken the store and you've done your advertising. So what is the store, John?
Okay.
To the person who says there's Music Connection vinyl.
Okay. Well, I love the name, Music Connection. So essentially, it's already telling you, I'm going to do something. Like it's almost like electric. I'm going to take my outlet, I'm going to take my plug, I'm going to put it together, and that's what you're going to find here. It is about, I'd say, if you take everything into account, it's over 50,000 records in here, vinyl records. About 35,045 RPM records, the singles of the past and somewhat present. A lot of new vinyl and a lot of depth in rock, in classical, and jazz, and folk, and country. I mean, it's really big. I haven't seen this many records since the glory days of the 1980s. It's amazing what Richard did. I mean, everything. I didn't really touch much of what Richard's done. I've kept his cards.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
handwriting's in here.
Yeah, yeah.
His organization is in here. I've done some aesthetics to the store. I painted the walls. I added some splash of color.
Yeah,
It
that's
lacked color, and I gave a focal point to the walls. They were kind of bland, and they didn't really show off what was in here. So it's a work in progress, however, because I wanted to remain open while I did this.
Yeah, right.
Only because Richard was ill, and he couldn't be here many times to open the store. He was a one-man show, and because of his health, the door was locked a lot. So I was adamant about keeping that door open regardless of what the store looked like, because people needed to see that it remains open, and it didn't have the... If I could put up the paper on the windows and said opening soon or something, or anything, but that would have not let people see what was going on.
A little more continuity.
Yeah, so I figured they'd want to see it unfold in the present time.
You talked about the 80s and the glory days. You said you were in the record store? In the
Oh, yeah.
business?
Yeah, I've actually...
So-
Not only was I a shopper as a child, but I worked in Concord. I grew up in Concord. I worked at Pitchfork as a teenager, and then later as a young adult. And I was manager of the mall store in Steeplegate Mall
Okay.
when it first opened in 1990. And from there, I actually moved to Massachusetts, and I worked at a store called About Music in Greenfield. And that's when the music business really took off as far as compact discs.
Yeah.
With the advent of the compact disc and grunge and Seattle and all those bands, it really changed how everything was happening in the music business. At that time, records were non-existent,
Right.
and new vinyl. I think they were maybe making 1 million a year of new vinyl at that point, from hundreds of millions back in the 70s and 80s. Compact disc had definitely taken over by then. And we used to sell records for $1 just to keep it alive. And I worked at that store for 19 years, and I was a co-owner from about 2004 on till 2009, when we closed the store. Closed the store on March 31st, 2009. And it was a good run. We actually, we were feeling like we're not going to make it into 2010. It was just everything changed.
Well, a lot of stores are gone now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
CDs and records.
Yeah. And I would say, not to, rain on the parade here, but I would say that the one thing that really took a lot of those stores out was iTunes.
Yeah.
People always say, oh, well, illegal downloading or something like that. They weren't necessarily your customer. Your customer actually bought things, and you didn't lose those people that used to buy things. You just didn't see those people that used to buy things because they got older, they had to have more responsibilities. All those kids that grew up in the 90s, all of a sudden they were parents, and their kids were going to school, and they had to put food on the table, and they had to no expendable income. So that came into play too. And but iTunes, all of a sudden, you could just sit at home and buy your songs, put it on your device, and you didn't have to leave your chair. Amazon, some ways, just because they didn't have a physical presence. When you have a store like there used to be, like Tower, or Sam Goody, or even like a FYE or a Record Town or a Strawberries, a lot of stores that would be a magnet, and you could feed off of that traffic. You can't feed off of Amazon. It's
Right.
Again, you don't walk into an Amazon store, So it was more the traffic disappeared, and I remember the comment I used to hear when we were closing was, I can't believe you guys are closing. And then the comment was, back to them, well, I haven't seen you in 3 years.
Yeah.
Oh, is that why? I said, no, it's not why. But if you're wondering,
There's a trend.
there's a trend. It wasn't just you. So, I didn't have a bittersweet problem with closing the store. It was pretty inevitable. I didn't want to lose more money. And, if you weren't going to be there for me, I needed to move on. So,
Right.
Store closed. And I actually kept the name alive for 1.5 years. I ended up actually negotiating with the store next door, which was a coffee shop, to my old location. I said, listen, can I come in here 8 hours a week, 5 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, and just kind of keep this name alive and sell stuff just like I was selling next door? So for 1.5 years, that's what I did. I kept the name alive. I actually had a lot of the customers that were into what I did at the store. They were all excited for me. I had a web presence, aboutmusic.com, and but it really was only 8 hours a week. It was really how didn't make any money. It just kept the name alive, just in case something turned around and I would do it again. I ended up moving to Maryland instead and lived down there for 5 years. returning to New Hampshire and doing this, again, I was like, is it really turned around? And I have a feeling it's turned around.
Well, I was going to say, so 2000, 2009, whatever, stores fading, closing, and here we are now in a full-blown vinyl record store. So
Yeah.
something has changed, or you're just really good at what you do, and maybe it's both of those things. So
It's something I know.
Right.
Like I said, I've been doing this almost my entire life. So it's kind of like riding a bike. You might not ride the bike when you're in your 20s because you have a car, but guess what? You might ride your bike in the 40s because you want to exercise. So essentially, I'm just going back to something I know how to do, and it feels good to be back. It's almost like being back at home.
all right, good for you. Good
Yeah.
for you. Where do you want it to go? I mean, is this it? Do you want to just have this business grow? Or do you have other
Well,
plans for the store? Or?
I do have other plans for the store. The idea of just getting foot traffic here is the most important. If people know I'm here, then they'll tell their friends, and then their friends will tell their friends, just like that old commercial with the shampoo. So that's the most important thing, because in order to survive in this business, you need repeat business. I could have closed this store. I didn't have to be here. I could have just put everything in storage and sat at home on my computer and listed records online and sold online. I'm not against that. I'd like to do that, but also have a store.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd also like to sell the items that people are looking for in the store. It's much easier to actually look at a record and and say, do I want this or not, as opposed to an internet buyer that's taking your word. They can make their own decision here.
Right.
They can look at it and say, is it worth what I want to pay for it?
So the foot traffic, who's your customer?
Actually, my customer is very young again.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, it's surprising. It's probably 11. Probably back to the time that when I was a kid.
I was doing it.
Yeah, and I was doing it too. Yeah, it's a shout out to the trend out there, to some of the retailers. I won't name names, but they definitely made it cool to listen to records, and it's probably the only technological, I wouldn't say backstep, but actually revisiting something that existed
yeah.
before.
Would you say, because that's the word out there, that vinyl's making a comeback? Is that?
Yeah, it's making a comeback, I think, for the reason that actually almost buried all the stores to begin with. People want to be off their devices.
Interesting.
They want to withdraw from being on a phone or being on a tablet or being on a computer. If you're 11, 12, 13, 14, you're learning on a computer. You're not learning from a book anymore. And the only way you can communicate with your friends is on a smartphone, because you're on Instagram and you're on Facebook and you're on Twitter. So to get away from it all, Calgon Take Me Away is essentially what's happening in vinyl.
So you're getting young kids, girls and boys, and
Yeah.
and men
And their
women.
parents.
Yeah.
They've looked at what their parents listened to. They're actually enjoying what their parents heard, because it's not to knock it, but if I listened to what my parents listened to, I don't know if I would have wanted to get into the music business, so, or even be interested in music. So, but they're listening to the 90s alternative stuff. They're listening to the 90s dance stuff. They're listening to the 80s alternative rock. They're listening to even the classic hair bands. They were full of hooks and melody, and even if you didn't like it then, hindsight actually changes everything. And these kids have no reference to it,
Right.
so they only hear music.
Right.
So they don't look at say, an artist that wore lots of makeup. They could care less. People look different all the time.
They weren't in the disco era to hate
They
the
weren't,
disco era, so
exactly.
they might like something that
Yeah,
was
exactly.
throwback or whatever.
It's that's pretty much what I've seen. They look at anything that's theatrical. They're into like Dirty Dancing. They're into Grease. They're into a lot of the Broadway shows, Cats, Phantom of the Opera, and those weren't necessarily big record sales. They were more CD sales.
Right,
so
right.
it's actually the hunt for them is to find these on record. I've sold a lot of Taylor Swift. I've sold a lot of Kendrick Lamar. I've sold a lot of Alabama Shakes.
LPs.
LPs, records, vinyl. All different genres of new vinyl. And they go to people's houses and they converse and they actually have a social life outside of their devices.
Very cool. Maybe you're onto something big here.
I think so. I'm kind of happy with it. Now, if it could only happen to 35 millimeter film, I'd be really psyched because I loved my Pentax. My Pentax K1000 and developing film. I don't know if that's coming back, but if it did, I'd be really happy.
So you're selling, well, we talked about the kids and what they're playing on. You have equipment here also to be purchased, right?
Yes,
that
I
they
do.
can play their LPs on and receivers and tape players.
I have new equipment, gently used equipment. I've got speakers. I've got amplifiers. I've even got CD players. I've even got cassette decks. They say that cassettes are the next vinyl.
Oh, jeez.
So we shall see. But
those won't hold up as well, I don't think.
I don't know.
The
But
old ones, maybe.
there are some cool aspects to it. I mean, it was a huge part of the 80s, cassettes and Walkmans and being able to take your music on the go. That was the first time, really, that you could take something and go anywhere you wanted to and hear it.
So, as a music lover, I come in stores like yours and I think there is some very cool stuff on the walls that I haven't seen in 20 or 30, 40 years, and you must have some very rare things here, some very unique things that
Yeah.
you don't have to go into it if you
Well,
but you're welcome to.
I just know that I'm still learning the inventory. It's so vast. I'm always surprised when someone brings something up to the counter and I'm like, oh, I didn't find that. I didn't see that. Wow, where'd you find that? Oh, down on the bottom shelf. I'm like, oh, okay.
So what, people bring you records, and mostly they bring you records, I presume?
Yeah, no, I've got a box of CDs and DVDs to go through.
Do you take everything? Or do you say sometimes?
Sometimes I say, this is all I want. I don't want these. Sometimes I give them an offer on all of it. It just depends.
There was a time, I think it might have been Richie's store, when I said he had like 20 Michael Jackson bads. No, Thriller.
Thriller.
You
Yeah.
he couldn't
Yes.
nobody can
Yeah.
get rid of those, right?
Yeah.
Used record stores. Maybe you can now, I don't know.
Yeah, now it's a hot record.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, Thriller's a hot record, even though it's the most successfully, as far as
Billions
one
of them.
album
Yeah.
goes, as a regular album, it's the best-selling regular album out there. The best-selling album ever is the Eagles' Greatest Hits.
Yes, I heard that, yeah. And you put all these 45s on the wall, all these new racks?
Oh, well, that was a work in progress. So when I first came into the store, Richard had 9 shelf bookcases that went right to the floor.
Right.
And this bin was actually this way far out. It came out to about here, right about here. And you couldn't go back there to look at these.
I remember that. You couldn't get to them.
This was his baby. You wanted a 45, he would get it for you. And I told him when I bought the store with my partner, Kevin, that that's not the way it's going to be in the future. I said I want people to be able to look at these just like they can look at the record albums. And his argument was, oh, they're going to get all messed up. And I said, well, these could all get messed up too. I mean, some people are way into singles. There's a lot of Northern Soul and a lot of classic Southern R&B that's extremely valuable. That's already been bought here. I wish I had more of that, but Richard sold a lot of that in the past. it kept the store open. He had
Really?
a lot of collectors from foreign countries come in and buy lots of records, very valuable, and he made good money.
Like
But-
the record labels were important.
Well, yeah, the they were usually
Stacks,
one-off.
whatever.
Yeah, they were mostly usually one-off labels.
I gotcha.
A lot of bands no one has ever heard of. That's pretty much what people look for. They're not looking for the classic artists that they remember. It's more that I don't know what that song is and I need to have it.
Right.
They were probably the most overlooked records back in the day because the other songs became hits. And so people are going back to find those records. I'd love to see some of those come back through. And hopefully they will,
Yeah.
because I'll add them to the inventory. I did choose these colors. Richard loved that red. He was all excited about when he walked into the store because he had never seen color on the walls.
Yeah.
So he was really psyched when he saw that. He actually told some of the regular customers that visited him in the hospital back in December that he's like, John painted the store, and do you know the name of the color? $1 Million Red. So I painted it red on that wall, and I painted a kind of like a slate blue gray color here. The red was to capture anyone driving into the parking lot because I needed something that caught your eye. The back side here with this gray, I wanted to have like a traditional New England sort of Cape Cod color. I also didn't want to be surrounded by red.
Yeah.
And I thought they complemented each other.
Very good colors.
Yeah. As you can see, I'm inundated with inventory, and it's more important that I have stuff coming in the door than sometimes how clean it is in here. Because I want people to find stuff.
And you know where everything is?
Pretty much. I know where everything is. And I'm actually in a partnership with a store in Nashua for equipment. Fidelis down in Nashua. We're in a partnership 50-50 split on equipment. So they supply the equipment and I sell it for them, and we split the money 50-50. It helps me actually have tested equipment, good equipment. I don't have to worry about does it work, does it not work?
You don't want people bringing it back. You don't want to do that. So.
And they're backing it up, so it's great. And it offers something that the store didn't have before.
And you've got record collectors' rarities up there with carrying cases.
Yeah, I've been
lava
acquiring
lamps
some of the that's actually my lava lamp collection. I had more in
Are
the
they
past.
authentic?
No,
No.
nothing's they're retro.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so a lot of the records that come through, I may pass on. I usually recycle the covers, and I try to find another use for the vinyl. I'm actually amassing a bunch of records to create coasters. So, because they're too scratched to play, but the labels look nice.
Take the middle part.
And you take the middle part and you make a coaster. Yeah. And, you could have your favorite album with your drink. And I thought that, for me, that's the best use of a bad record. I don't really like the potato chip bowls. I'm not a big fan of those.
Yeah, I've seen those, yeah.
But, it's nice to listen to a record and then put your drink down on a coaster that says Meet the Beatles or something. It's pretty cool.
Does everybody ever come in here and give you a record, in a pile, and you go, they don't know what they've got here. It's some rare.
Yeah, but I'm not going to disclose what
No,
those
I'm just-
records would be.
No, well, all right. But you must know yourself. Go, I'll take this one. And
Yeah, I actually just had one recently walk in the door, and I was blown away. I had no idea that would ever. It actually has never happened to me.
you have a website, right?
I do. I have a website. It's musicconnection.us, and that's a work in progress right now. It's on my off time. So
right.
when I'm not in the store, I'm working on the website and figuring out ways to get that together. but it is live, and
People can reach you that way?
people can reach me that way.
Yeah.
Can also reach me by phone, 603-644-0199, and also by email, which is a very long email address, musicconnection manchesternh@gmail.com.
Great.